Is announcing some new changes for Meta, calling the recent elections a cultural tipping point towards prioritizing free speech. So this morning, he's announcing that Meta, which of course owns Facebook and Instagram, will move away from the independent, nonpartisan fact-checking they've had in place since after the 2016 election. Instead, he says they will rely on community notes. In other words, users putting out context. This is similar to what X is doing. Zuckerberg says Meta's complex moderation system makes too many mistakes with too much censorship. Meta also plans to get rid of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender and move their content moderation team from California to Texas, among other things, all essentially loosening up the way that Facebook moderates its content. This is all happening less than 2 weeks before President-elect Trump is sworn in, and as Zuckerberg and some of these other tech titans look to be making inroads with the incoming administration. After Mr. Trump's victory in November, Zuckerberg traveled to Mar-a-Lago. His company also donated about $1 million to the Trump Inaugural Fund. Keep in mind the backdrop here, right? Over the next 4 years, the Trump administration will set federal policy in areas like AI and antitrust that are really important to Meta and some of these other big tech companies.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Well, we have some amazing news. Apparently Zuckerberg, the Mark Zuckerberg, owner of Facebook, Meta, and Instagram, yeah, this man is now finally singing a new tune, a different tune, because he is removing all forms of censorship on his platforms and embracing freedom of speech. Yeah, you heard that right. Embracing the freedom of speech, the great warm embrace. And liberals are losing it. They're losing it because they cannot stand that freedom of speech is prevailing. That is hurting their credibility. And they hate the fact that fact-checking is now being removed from their company because fact-checking was from very far leftists that were fact-checking when in fact they were just lying about it, right? So it's great to see. Now, we have seen throughout the days on this channel of the amount of W's that we're getting. And there's more W's to come. I'm still trying to get a video out every hour on the hour because there's so many videos coming, there's so much information that's been released, and I haven't been able to. And I'm going to be doing that and more. Unfortunately, the video won't be going out till Thursday. I apologize because I haven't had time to actually record that. So now I will. But without further ado, my friends, we have this here. With this saying from CNN Business saying, UFC head Dana White joins Meta's board. Mark Zuckerberg's second key right-wing appointment in a week. So Zuckerberg is really just going out of the wall here and just getting after a Republican or right-wing, as they say, to join the party. It's a huge W. And here we have the far left, the liberals that are losing their minds about the whole situation. Take a look.
Well, unsurprising but still concerning news. Mark Zuckerberg has decided that Meta will undergo some major policy changes. These policy changes will essentially make Meta platforms much more like X. And as a reminder, Meta platforms include Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger. So right now the plan is that moderators are going to be removed from these platforms, and any moderators that do exist are going to be living in Texas, a traditionally conservative state. We can expect community guidelines to be much more lax, meaning that all kinds of information can be out there, whether true or not. And allegedly Zuckerberg will be putting in some sort of community notes feature, much like X has. Zuckerberg will also be working with Donald Trump to, quote, end censorship completely, meaning that there will not be topic restrictions. Again, this is unsurprising news. We did expect to start seeing things like this, but it is very important now more than ever that you do your fact checking for yourself, because we won't have that anymore.
Mark Zuckerberg just made a big announcement that basically he's sold out. He more or less said that Meta platforms are turning into X platforms in terms of how they regulate content. Wonderful. Not only that, he's moving all of the content regulation side of the business. He's moving it out of California to Texas so that people aren't worried that it's bias, because if you're in California, then you must be biased. Oh God. So basically, they're doing away with fact checking entirely. They're going to have community notes, just like X. He basically said in the video that, he took notes from Elon. It's a mess. This is really bad. Like, I already see some of the worst shit I've ever seen on the Meta platforms. And none of the right stuff gets taken down. I'll give you a perfect example. I saw a video on Facebook of the New Orleans tragedy. No censor, no nothing. Like, it came up in my feed without my consent. I saw all the blood. I saw the bodies that were... It was awful. It was one of the most horrible videos I've ever seen on the internet since you accidentally used to download really bad shit on LimeWire.
Implications of this policy change, to me, this is Mark Zuckerberg completing his total surrender to Donald Trump. Remember, a few weeks ago, Mark Zuckerberg met with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, then proceeded to have Meta donate $1 million to Donald Trump's inaugural fund, and then replaced Meta's global policy chief, who was a liberal, with a Republican. So it's no coincidence that after all of that, Mark Zuckerberg has decided to now remove fact-checking from the website, which obviously serves to benefit Donald Trump, a man who spread 30,000 plus lies during his first term and who relied on lies and disinformation to win again in 2024. So yeah, Meta just completely surrendered to Donald Trump.
Yeah, so they're not having a good time. They're melting down. They are crying over this, and you love to see it. It is what happens. I mean, you just don't expect to get away with this thing forever, right? It is a new era. It's a new dawn. It is a new culture coming afoot. And you guys better start embracing it because it's not going to be a happy and fun time for you. We have this here that Facebook deletes internal employee criticism of new board member Dana White. Yeah, it is not looking too great for the far left here. And of course, we have this here from Benny Johnson, pretty much saying, Mark Zuckerberg announces sweeping changes to Facebook and Instagram to move forward free speech, including any third-party fact-checking and replacing it with community notes like X, removing reduction of political content and lifting topic restrictions. Let's get into this video.
Hey everyone, I want to talk about something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years.
I hate to say it, Zuckerberg, but you were not the one for free expression at all. You were the one that was censoring people, removing posts. When everybody was talking about the COVID vaccine, you immediately backtracked and did not say anything and banned people for it. I remember you banning some of these huge things that had 250K followers, and you banned it because they didn't follow with your worldview. So stop with the lying here. We know you're lying, but it's a good thing that you're going to the step on the right direction.
There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech.
And you have been getting very, very friendly with Donald Trump in the past recent months because, one, you were expecting him to win the presidency, and you're trying to prevent yourself from actually going to jail for some of the censorship that you've been doing because, you have that, investigation that's upon your little head. And among other things, yes, it is a cultural tipping point that we are wanting more free speech. And it's very damning to see when you notice the liberals freaking out, crying about it, complaining about the free speech because it shuts down their narrative, right? It prevents the narrative from the far left to do what they want. Because the thing is, they want free speech, but they only want free speech for themselves. They don't actually want free speech for everyone else involved. Because if you tell them if you lay out the facts, they freak out and they try to counsel you because they're children and they don't know how to handle themselves.
So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
I agree, and the fact of the matter is that a lot of the fact checkers were left wing, and you cater to those left wing people. That's just kind of how it goes. Just not just forget too as well. You had the government, Zuckerberg, under your nose and ring, the Biden administration and what have you. You were working with the government to censor conservatives, Republicans, etc., because they didn't fit your worldview, they didn't fit the narrative, and you were just working with the said government. Granted, you may be terrified or what have you, but that's just the case here.
So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms.
I agree that the gender thing is a huge problem. I don't think people seem to realize on how bad the gender was just a divisive thing that everybody goes on about. When you go and listen to leftists and you don't want to go and say their pronouns, or you don't want to do this or that to them or what have you, they freak out and they try to counsel you and ruin your entire life. That is what their mantra is. That's what their go-to is. And I hate to say it, guys, but when it came down to just be marriage and what have you, they pushed it further and they wanted every asset of their life into your own life and pushed it onto other people. No. We don't do that here, right? We'll deal with you, we'll accept you, you live your own life and we'll live our own life, but don't push your own BS down other people's throats. I don't do that, and nobody else should potentially do that, because all you're going to do is get backlash. And yes, the change in culture is saying, no, we don't want this anymore.
Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth,
To address some of these things here is that I don't think it was people that didn't want to see necessarily politics. I think it was just politics that people wanted to see for themselves or what they actually liked. And I think it was another thing too is that like when you talk about we don't want politics on a platform, we don't want politics that is extremely biased towards one party and not the other, right? Because like we just want fairness. And you can't get fairness if you're being politically biased. And that's just the way things are, right? That's just what we see as what we see when we talk about politics on Facebook. Because we know when you put on politics, you're only seeing one side of politics. You're only seeing left-leaning politics. You never seen right. You never seen the right or conservative, the middle road, or nothing. You just seeing left wing. And that's the reason why people were tired of those politics, because there was only one side bias against a certain group, right? So that's the reason why people didn't want to see the politics in general on Facebook, because it only leaned one way.
We're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build...
California is just getting another L. It's just getting that other L. It really is a travesty for California. A lot of these tech-based companies are leaving California and going to Texas because it is just cheaper and easier to live in Texas with less regulations. Perhaps California should take note. Stop with regulations.
Build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there.
Well, they also arrest people for what they post on their social media account. If you post something that the government does not like, or somebody deems that it feels insulting, you can get arrested for that. There is no freedom of speech in Europe. It's all but gone, right? So let's make it $1.50, all right? Europe in general, it's a hellscape. It's terrible. It's a horrible country. I would never want to live there. The fact that you can be arrested for saying things that the government or somebody else doesn't like is insanity to me.
Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further.
Not necessarily, because Mark Zuckerberg, as I told you, you have been working with the government to censor people. So that's just the reality of it. You've been working with the government to censor people. If you didn't toe the line, if you didn't do that, there would be less of that problem. But since you did, you were part of the problem. It's nice that you're rectifying it now because big boy daddy Trump has got you in his grasp and has you by the balls and you have to listen to him so you don't get arrested. But again, you did it. So did a lot of these other left-wing sites. You did censorship, so you should own up to it.
But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
All right, so yeah, that's it. That's Mark Zuckerberg, all right? So I think this is what's crazy, right? I think this is what the reality is coming forth here. on everything. And we're seeing a huge cultural shift, guys. We're seeing a huge cultural shift. And this is promising. The fact that this is all going on, we'll see how this goes. And see if Mark Zuckerberg keeps to his word, right? We don't know, because he has lied before. He has been backstabbing Americans for years now, and we'll see how everything plays out. But it's a huge win, guys. It's a huge W. Got to keep eating them. I know you're getting full. I know they're making you eat too much, but it's a step in the right direction, and you love to see it. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Like, guys, share. As always, take care, my friends.
I'm disgusted by what I see in public. Even people closest to us can't be trusted. This is algorithmic disease, the social media.